Brian has been a friend of the Sierra for a long time. His family has a long history ranching in the region. He was a Lassen County supervisor for 16 years, which is, I think he and Robert Wygant might be going for the longest titled supervisors in the Sierra Nevada, you know. And was elected to the 1st Assembly District 2 years ago, representing Northeastern California. So I'm going to give Brian about 20 minutes to introduce himself and talk about some of the issues in Sacramento today. And then we have a couple questions that are follow-up questions from information that came out of our 2 panels today. And then we're going to open it up for a dialogue with you to close the session and be out of here at about 5 o'clock. So without further ado, Brian Dahle.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve. I really appreciate it. I just want to take a few seconds here just to give you a little background on myself. I know a lot of people in the crowd, but not everybody. So I'm a farmer. Actually, I came from home today, which is Bieber. I don't know if any of you know where that's at. Bieber, California is where I live. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning, went to Tule Lake, picked up a load of seed. I'm a seed farmer, and brought it home, and then drove over here this afternoon. I have my staff member, who is Bruce Ross right here. He's my district director. I want to make sure and let you know who he is. Get a card from him if you want to get in touch with me. I forgot my cards at home for some reason today, but I am available 24/7 pretty much as your assembly member. So my family homesteaded in Tule Lake up near the border in the 30s, and I continue to farm. Bought my mom out after my dad passed away, and I'm a seed farmer basically. Served 16 years on the Board of Supervisors in Lassen County. Went through the Quincy Library Group process. I don't know how many of you know about that. That's where we tried to talk about fire, got some federal legislation passed, was a member of the Sierra Nevada Conservancy Board from the time that the law got passed in and there was a board, and then until I came to the state legislature. So pretty much I've been my whole life in northeastern part of the state, and I'm happy to be able to have you come to my district if you're not from here, and it's the greatest district in the whole state to represent. The best people and the best environment. Except for, I want to talk. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think is I'm going to talk about the Sierras mainly, because I know that that's, up and down the Sierras. The number one threat to the Sierras is fire, and obviously this summer we've seen that more than anything. We've been talking about fire as county supervisors and people in ag, and the people up in the Sierras have been talking about it for some time, because we know that, I'm just going to say it, the Smokey the Bear campaign for 75 years was the wrong thing. And we extinguished fire, and fire was part of our ecosystem. It allowed the forest to thin itself when lightning strike, and we had low mosaic burning fires. Every 8 to 12 years, it burned through our forest, and it kept it thinned out. Obviously, we came in and cut a lot of those trees down and used them in the Comstock over here in Nevada to shore it up while we were taking minerals out of there. But we have too much fuel out there. And so I've been a champion of trying to come up with ways to reduce that fuel load. And what we have is we've had a lot of conversation about the size of trees that we can cut or not cut, when we should be talking about ladder fuels and the canopy. I'm going to say something that some people may not know, but you can have a whole forest of old growth, 6-foot in diameter trees. If the canopies, that means the limbs are touching each other, it can burn across the top and never touch the floor. We need to open the canopy up to open it up enough to where the fire can get down on the floor, burn low, do what it's supposed to do by thinning the forest, and take care of our watersheds. And if we can do that in the Sierras, I think that's the threat would be a way it would create jobs, it would create clean water, clean air, and a place for the wildlife to actually thrive. So those are the things I've been working on for 16 years as a county supervisor, among all the other things that you do as a county supervisor. And so my goal as a state legislator was try to take some of that, those issues and ideas to the state capitol. And when I got to the state capitol, I found out very quickly that they don't know anything about the Sierras. They think the water starts at the dams. There's a whole watershed above the dams. And so I started, I'm a member of the Environmental Caucus, the only Republican, by the way. I went to the environmental caucus and I started talking to them about my issues in my district, about fire and about, there's no habitat. And so maybe I'm pretty simple, but I look at things just like I do on my farm. I'm a farmer, and the forest is a farm. If we take care of it, it will continue to grow, produce, and do what we want it to do, and create jobs and a place to recreate, and hopefully the snow will actually get to the ground after we open it up. So I started talking about that to my legislators, and across the aisle I have a very good relationship with a lot of the legislators who are from the other side of the aisle. Because of my 16 years on the Board of Supervisors, some of them have went up to the Assembly too. So Rich Gordon, who was invited to come but couldn't make it, a real good friend of mine from the Bay Area, who his watershed is Hetch Hetchy, because that's where their water source comes from. So last year we were able to run a bill, or year before last, my first year there, that allows private landowners to harvest trees up to 24 inches in diameter without going through the timber harvest plan, so that we could actually open up forest on private land. So there are two issues that are faced in California, I think, with forestry and with the Sierras. There are many of them, but these are the top two. One is that the federal government operates most of the Sierras. It's federal land. And so my goal has been to do a good job as a California legislator on private land, so we can show the federal government what is the right way to manage our forest. Now let's talk about AB 32 and global warming for a minute, and then I'll be quiet and listen to you. So we have the AB 32, and there's this carbon tax credit money that's available out there. It's been spent 1,000 times already, so don't think you're going to get any of it. It's the truth. Everybody that comes to my office will say to me, let's get some of that. Well, we can use some of the carbon tax credit money. Look, if it's true that it is very competitive, and we have to tell our story a little bit better than somebody else if we think we're actually going to see some of that funding come to the Sierras. And that's just the truth. And there are a lot of, we could talk politics for a little bit too about, like the water bond. The reason the water bond is the way it is that's how much it costs to buy the votes off to get it on the ballot. Before, it cost $3.6 billion more, because it's horse trading. At the end of the day, you've got to get enough votes to get it to the governor and get it to put on the ballot. And so I think because of the drought and the way things played out this time, and then we got to where we are, but unfortunately the Sierras didn't get as much as the coastal conservatives, but that's politics. You're one vote out of 80, and you can only leverage that one vote so much, and that's as good as it gets. It's only as good as what you're able to leverage it at. So with the AB 30, back to the AB 32 part of it, is that there's this carbon tax credit money that's going to be available to do something, besides hopefully putting $250 million of it into a train. No offense to the governor, but to me it's the worst place to put the money. I think we can get a bang for our buck a lot quicker on carbon if we spend it in the Sierras. So my goal has been to educate legislators. I've had 23 legislators to this district out of the Assembly Senate. Likewise, I've been going to their districts and learning about their districts and educating them about ours. So my goal is to get every one of them here. Because, who doesn't want to come to Tahoe? Really. So the other goal I have is this year I'm going to be a little more aggressive in my legislative package. I'm going to actually try to convince the Air Board that they should count forest fires in our carbon emissions in California. Some of you may not be aware that they regulate my commercial truck, your lawnmower, your weed eater, your barbecue, and they don't even count the emissions from carbon from forest fires, which is the biggest emitter. So we should be able to, if we can get that process taken care of, get some of that revenue that's coming out of the carbon tax into the Sierras and help reduce some of this fuel loading so that we can actually keep our forests and our critters and our jobs and our snow and our water. So with that, I'll open it up for questions or
Great.
Whatever you want to talk about. And
So I'm going to
thanks again for having me, and welcome to the greatest district in California.
Those of us that live here, we have a lot of friends from the Southern Sierra too. We know your place is great too. So I'm going to ask a couple questions based on the discussion in the panels today before we open it up to public discussion. So one thing that you mentioned was that you brought 23 legislators to the district. How would you describe the state of the relationship between California's urban and rural regions? I know that's been a real focus of your discussions with Assemblymember Gordon and other people, and that urban-rural connection and divide has been a major topic of conversation.
So I prefer to legislate when there's not a crisis, because I want to plan ahead. I'm a farmer. I can tell you 3 years from now what I'm going to plant in my fields as I rotate. And I think that's the way legislators should think, is long term. We should have been talking about water 20 years ago and doing something about it instead of today when we're in a drought. So when I went to the other legislators' district, and I went to Southern California, and I'm not going to tell you the legislator's name, but good friend of mine, and I was touring his district, and I said, "Where does your water come from?" And he says, "Out of the tap." And he was serious. And I said, "I know, okay, but does MWD give it to you? Who gives you your water?" He says, "I don't know." So I said, "Did you know that 60% of your water comes from the Sierras? And then that's why you should care about what we do in the Sierras, because that's where your fresh water comes from." So it's building the relationship and educating not only me about their issues, but them about our issues. And that I think is going to be the key. Once I get the legislators to the district and we walk through the forest, it's over. I can get their vote. They can, a fourth grader can figure out what we need to do. Look, there's too much fuel. It's all competing for water, and we can take that fuel out, and there's more water for everybody. The trees are greener. It's not that hard to figure out what we need to do. Now, the toughest part of it is the economy, the part of it, the cost. You can spend $3,500 an acre to, reduce the fuel. So my goal has been to not only move legislation that does the right thing for the Sierras, but try to come up with a model that the taxpayer isn't burdened with so much of the cost, because there are literally millions of acres that need to be taken care of.
So how do we do that? What are the market-based mechanisms that can be used to encourage forest thinning and forest restoration? And what do you think can be done to advance some?
So I know for a fact, because I spent so much time in timbering communities, that and this is where the battle's at, is the size of you have to have something that's sellable for a company to be able to make a profit, or at least to break even enough to get the fuel, the cost of the shipping. So the small diameter trees cost a lot because there's no value. Basically, they're fuel to a cogeneration, and there's boards in a larger tree. So you have to get the diameter up enough to pay to get all the biomass out. And then after you do that, you have to let fire actually burn, and there's going to be some smoke. People don't like smoke. If we ever get to the point where we can let fire go, right now you can't, because you get these catastrophic events. But it would sure be nice someday to just let fire do what it's supposed to do. So my goal is to, first of all, increase that. I did with legislation, increase that diameter. It's a pilot project. Hopefully people will use it, and then we can get that data back, and we can go out, and then we can start getting close to where it makes some sense. On the other side of that, I want to say, though, that's the place where I think that the public money should come in is from the carbon tax. It's emitting carbon, the most carbon. So I think that money should be coming in. We could spend it all every year, but we should be able to, if we do the right job by putting some value in there, getting some value out, and then adding some of that carbon money in there, I think that'll help. I did run a bill to this, and then I'll get back, let you in. I could go on. I get excited about this. I ran a bill, 2363, AB 2363. So we have wind, solar, biomass, geothermal, who are all competing against each other. By the way, California has all the renewables it needs. By the way, most people don't know that, especially other states don't know that, who are developing green energy that they think they're going to sell to us. We have enough. In fact, they're competing against each other. So wind and solar, love them both, but they get subsidized. Biomass and geothermal don't, and hydro. So I ran a bill, AB 2363, which asked the PUC to take the integration cost in So that, which means that if you have a plant already there, that when they have to build a new one, there's a cost to that, environmental cost. So it'll level the playing field some, so that our biomass plants and our geothermal plants in this part of the state can be competitive in bidding it. Because the utilities, they put a bid out that we need this much megawatts, and whoever's the lowest bidder gets the price. They don't care what the green is, as long as it's green. So that bill, the governor signed it just a week ago. So that is an attempt to keep biomass and geothermal and small hydros in our district working.
That's great to hear, because that was my next question, was going to be about what we can do to incentivize biomass to electrical energy. Because we have plants starting up or trying to start up, everywhere from Terabella in the southern Sierra Nevada, which I think has been offline for a while and has recently planned to come back online, to North Fork, to Cabin Creek, to Forest Hill, and other facilities like Loyalton that have been essentially mothballed for 10
Loyalton,
years.
Covanta, I can go down the list. There's
Susanville.
Bieber, right? I look at one right at my house that doesn't run and it's paid for. They own it. But you can't, it's cost too much to get the fuel in.
So it's a combination of fuel costs, getting the fuel in, and public subsidy, making essentially biomass and geothermal able to compete with solar and wind.
Right, well, they did the study, the Sierra Nevada Conservancy did the study, bless their soul, for the biomass plant that's going to go into Placer County, and it shows that it actually sequesters carbon, even after you chip it up, truck it, do all the things you need to do. So there should be actually a credit coming back to them because they're sequestering carbon by removing the fuel. So that's the long-term plan, is first of all, get the legislature and the administrators of the Air Board to understand that fire is a real problem.
So recognizing that forest carbon emission should be calculated in the state's carbon emission.
Right, a growing forest sequesters carbon, a dying one emits carbon, and it's pretty obvious that we had over 250,000 acres just in my district burn up this year that's emitting carbon.
So another issue that's come up...
Not to mention the silt and the water quality problems
Right.
we're going to have behind it.
Another issue that's come up relatively consistently is this idea of whether or not we can convince people to make long-term investments versus short-term investments that improve water quality. And I know there was a lot of debate in the water bond about storage versus other uses and other things. How do you think we can find more common ground on this issue of short-term versus long-term benefit and gain? Like, restoring a forest might take 30 to 50 years, whereas building a dam might take 5 years.
20. Trust me.
Either way, we're going to be low on water.
I would say that I think that there needs to be a balance. I think that we need to look at our water supply. There's 3 ways that we should do it, in my mind. We should build storage not on dams or off-stream storage like sites. I think we should build that. I think we should have opportunities where there are 2 dams already and there's nothing in between, and we have opportunity to build dams on the rivers. That's an opportunity. Whether or not we can get through the legal process of that, I don't know. I think that we have a huge opportunity to store in the ground naturally by, again, thinning and open up the forest and letting the filter work like it's supposed to. And then I think that we need to be recharging in the valley where we don't recharge. So I think there needs to be a combination of those things. And the investment needs to be, the beautiful thing about water is if you create the water, you have the infrastructure, you have the economy that comes with it that helps solve the problem of the lack of money. I mean, some of the issues that we have in the San Joaquin Valley are our own fault. And I hate to say that, but where we used to graze cattle along the hills, it's all trees. And they're pumping water out of the ground. And we didn't build any storage, so we took it out of the ground, and we have a huge groundwater problem. So I think there needs to be a balance. I would venture to say that if we did great forestry at a pace and scale that we need to do it at, which would scare some people, we need to do hundreds of thousands of acres a year to keep up with what's growing out there. Look, everything that's green is alive out here, and it's taking up water. And if you could open that up and take some of that out and reduce that ability to take the water, you could increase your water storage by probably 20%. So I want to tell you, and I'm not an economist or any of that. I'm a farmer, but I look at things like a farmer. We did junipers are a weed tree that have encroached in the northeastern part of the state, and we did a juniper reduction project on a ranch I was managing in the springtime. We went out there with hot saws, they call them. They cut the tree down and put them in a pile so we could skid them in and chip them up and send them to the mill to burn for electricity. No weather change. They cut about 25 acres a day of just the juniper trees. The only thing we took out. We left all the pines and everything else in there. They went through and they cut about 40 acres. In 2 days, we couldn't get up the road because the springs came back from no rain. We were driving up the road and the springs just started running. Well, it's because we took the source away. So just think about that. If you did that through the Sierras, how much more, even 5%. If you took 5% of the water that was in the Sierras and took the vegetation away so we could imagine how much water that is, a huge amount. So I think we have a huge opportunity there. We have to tell the story, we have to figure out how to fund it, and we have to make believers of people. And we have to somehow come up with, and I want to talk about this, I think one of the biggest problems in California is we need tort reform. You can't just sue to sue. If you sue and lose, you should pay. And that would, other countries do it, and it's awesome. So then, if you're going to sue somebody, you have to really think about, am I doing it for the right reason, or am I just doing it to tie them up? And I said this at the Environmental Caucus, there's a big debate about CEQA. I know I'm kind of just going all over the place here.
No, that's fine, because I think that's relevant to this issue.
So
CEQA reform,
you know,
is a huge issue in the state.
Yeah, so CEQA was a big deal in Sacramento about, you know, we did an CEQA exemption for the Arco Arena, and you know, every time that you get the right players in line, people who want jobs, people who want to build something, it's amazing how you can just skirt the law. So we were at the Environmental Caucus, and they were talking about, you know, doing something with CEQA. Look, I'm a Republican, and I'm going to say this. CEQA is a great law. It was intended to do what it was supposed to do, was let your neighbors know when you're going to do something, and if it's going to impact them, you have to mitigate it. That's really what the law says. It's a great idea. As a landowner, and if somebody who has neighbors, that's a great law. The problem with CEQA is it's been used by business on business, and I know this for firsthand. We had, as a county supervisor, we had one construction company owning a gravel pit, and they don't want the other ones to build one, so they're suing them over CEQA. You have labor unions who want labor, and they're using it for their extracting of contracts for the thing to be built with labor. And then you have environmentalists using it to stop projects they don't want to stop. If you had tort reform, it eliminates all that. If you lose, you pay. Now, that would bring CEQA right in line, because CEQA now would be doing what? What it's supposed to do. It's supposed to, if there's an impact, if you can't mitigate it, then you got a problem. If you can mitigate it, you can't. And it's letting the people know. So for me, there's nothing wrong with CEQA. It's how CEQA's been used. And I get slammed a lot from my colleagues on my side of the aisle about that statement, but it's true. At the end of the day, don't you want to know what's happening out there? That's why CEQA was put forward. If it was used for what it was supposed to be used for, it's a great law. But it's used for all the wrong things.
I want to switch gears for just a minute before we open it up to public questions. And please be thinking about your questions. It would be great to be able to get as many people in as possible. But I want to switch to the business development and leveraging private investment in the Sierra Nevada in business for a minute. We're really excited about the opportunity to be able to provide some business consulting services through the Small Business Development Center and our Peak Innovation Center that will be opening in Truckee. But you know, business development has been a really tough issue for Northeastern California. You have some of the hardest hit counties in California. They're analogous to other counties in the Sierra Nevada as far as their unemployment rates and seasonal unemployment figures, and lack of backbone industries. And really, that's what's led to, in many cases, an aging demographic and most of the young people leaving the community. What can we start to do to address that issue in your district? What do you see as the big opportunities that we should be working on?
You know, I don't know if I really have a silver bullet for this. And when I'm pretty straight up honest. Look, I'm a farmer. I farm about 2,000 acres. My grandfather farmed the same amount of land, and he had 10 people working there, and I have 2. So I'm just gonna lay out business for you. We do things, we're mechanized more, and where we used to have a sawmill every 50 miles or every 30 miles, and they cut 30 to 40,000 board feet a day, and they employed 35 people, we have technology that allows you to cut 300,000 board feet a day with 7 or 8 people. And that's just because we've done a good job of, technology. So that makes it difficult for resource-based communities. And trust me, I see it every day in my little community. The school I went to is where my kids are going, and my wife's on the school board there, and there's 189 kids or something like that in K through 12. And there was maybe 250 there when I was there. So we've lost 188. We don't have the jobs. And I'm one of 4. 3 of my siblings, they're off making real money, and I'm still on the farm. But anyway, it's so, and then another thing too, I think that for the Sierras, we have, the greatest thing that we have is that people love to come here, and it's a great place to recreate, and there's a great amount of history. It's beautiful, and people want to live here. I think that's why you see older people come, but business has to have some security. Nobody's going to make an investment in a business if they don't think they can pay the money back and actually make a profit. So we have to give them, and I think that's the legislature's opportunity to stand up and give some security. Quit making 2,000 bills a year and 800 of them getting signed in law. That's 2 a day. You can't even keep up. And they're changing, the regulatory environment's changing every day. So I think that the legislature has to have part of that. I think educating on the risks that there are in business. I think that, in my own business, if I would have known what I was getting into, probably would have said, you know what, I think I'll just go work for Caltrans and get a retirement and really, you take huge risk. I've
said that twice in my life.
And people don't realize that to create a job, there's a lot of risk in it. And I have employees, so I can say this. And I'm one of very few legislators who actually meets a payroll every 2 weeks. But they say, we got to create jobs, and they don't know the first thing about creating a job. First of all, the last thing I want to do is hire somebody. And I say that to them. They go, why? Because they're a liability. And it's the truth. An employee is somebody who, and the ones I have, God bless them, I love them, and I pay them great. But there's somebody who is a liability to you. So, I think there's an opportunity for, if we can educate the legislators and then train people up to know what they're getting into in business so that they can make it the long haul. You can have free money like we have right now, interest, all day long, but if you don't understand business and you can't move at the pace business moves, you can't stay in business. And so I think that there's opportunities to train people, and you can't really make a business owner, I'm sorry. It's to have the drive you have to be a business owner comes just naturally. I think the better thing to do is help the businesses that are already there. To me, if you can get every business in the area to employ 2 more people, you don't need to start a 50-person community business. You'll have it already. Help the ones that are there stay. I remember when the lumber mill in my little community went broke, and then the county, I was on the county board of supervisors, or they didn't make it, and we came in, we had all kinds of money and helped retrain all these people and send them off and basically leave my community. Why weren't we there before to help keep that business there? We look at it, I think, in the wrong way. Instead of trying to start businesses, let's help the businesses that we already have expand and stay there.
That's a really good point, because that's something that we've been looking at as part of the Peak Innovation Center that actually helping existing businesses expand markets, operate more efficiently so they have more capital to reinvest in inventory and employees and marketing is a much better strategy for a lot of the rural region. So I think that's really fascinating. Although I will ask all of our staff to ignore the idea that that staff is a liability.
I'm a pretty straight shooter, and it's the truth. Not that to put new ones on, it is. It's a risk.
I'd like to open it for questions now, and please, as you have a question, make sure you stand and project so everyone in the room can hear it, because I don't think we have a mobile microphone going around. So someone, please. Kim Carr in the back.
Brian, I'm just wondering, do you have any job openings?
You want to know what? I do. I actually am going to have one, Kim. So if you'd like to fill out a resume, I would. If you can drive an 18-wheeler, I'm looking for you.
I think the Conservancy would kill you. I have some experience in that. Okay, please, Kim.
So when you were on the S&C board, we spent a long time talking about how to create jobs and how to retain existing businesses. So now that you've been in the state legislature for a while, I'm wondering what your ideas are, especially with the mill sites. So both getting the cogen facilities and mills operating again, but also looking for new opportunities to take the biomass and turn it into higher end products. Do you have any ideas as far as policies?
I have been. That's what I've been focused on pretty much the whole time. I mean, as far as my district goes, that's what I've been focused on. That's why I did 2363. I did AB 744. Those are both ones that are trying to keep existing plants running. And you know, the problem with the biomass, it's not an easy. I mean, I have Democrat members who get it, understand that we need biomass in the worst way, and they don't even live close to a forest at all because I've spent so much time educating them. But it's not easy. There's so many factors in biomass that make it difficult to be in the biomass industry that there's not one quick fix. If there was, we would have done that. So I think the long term for me is, and it's everything takes time. I mean, to get the air board to understand that the carbon's coming out of the forest and that we should invest in that to sequester it, I think is an avenue that I believe would be the best avenue for the biomass. The other thing I've thought about, and I haven't proved this out, this is something food for thought, is, you know, transportation obviously is difficult in the Sierras too, because we have hopefully snow, but is to try to bring some of those micro businesses to the places where we produce the energy. I mean, like we have biomass, that way you don't have the wheeling cost. So, and I don't know what that is, but that's been a thought process. The other thing is we need to find something else to use biomass for besides making energy, because it's tough to compete with all those other things. And I don't know what that is. I was hoping that there would be some technology that would come out where we could actually see it turned into biodiesel or something, but the technology is just not there, because I've done a lot of work looking at that too. So.
Yeah, Glenda Humiston, Dr. Humiston from USDA was here actually right after lunch talking about new biomass products or products from biomass that are really exciting, but could take years for the technology to catch up to the opportunity, you know. So, Mariposa.
Yes. Tara Schiff, I'm the Community Development and Grant Coordinator for Mariposa. I really do the economic development for the whole entire county. And you just touched on exactly what I said when I was hired, was I wanted to focus on helping the small mom and pop businesses thrive, because I thought that was our core background, and that is the heart of Mariposa. My question for you is, a lot of our small startup businesses were able to start up because of CDBG, are you familiar with CDBG grants, micro enterprise, and now I have business assistance. I've received a little bit of criticism for the micro enterprise from community members that we're just throwing money away, we're giving money. To me, I think that that's the best program we have for economic sustainability. So I wanted to get your feedback.
So I was very much involved in economic development at the county supervisor level, and I got criticized the same for trying every which way to make a job out there. And that's where I really came up with the conclusion that you can't make a business owner. I mean, and that's why I say focus on the ones that are already there. They already know how to run a business. They already understand what they're up against. They are willing to put in the 15-hour days, and so I don't really have a smoke and gun answer for you other than if somebody has a niche, run with it. Whatever that niche is in your community, if that's, help them. I mean, that's really what we have is small niches here and there. I mean, we find it in the district here and there, places where people have a niche, and it's a service that they are able to market. So other than, the best part of the district, I'm talking about my assembly district, is that people love to come and recreate, and then they leave. But we need that. We need a payroll every 2 weeks. That's really what keeps your school, keeps everything, your grocery store working, in all these little towns throughout the district, and that feeds into the bigger towns when people go do their main shopping. So it's kind of a long, not a real good answer. But I don't have a smoke. If I had it, I would do it.
No one said he wasn't going to be frank. Front row, please.
My name is Amanda Bush, and I want to say thank you for being part of the solution. And my question is, what are you or anybody else in the legislature, or any closest to everybody, what's anyone doing about the aging water infrastructure issue? We saw a water main pipe break in LA, and it ties back to we were talking in the first session this morning on investment about forest fires and how it's cheaper to clean them up to prevent them, to clean it up afterward. Seems like that might be a similar type of issue. What's anybody doing about that?
So I know that there is, because of the broken pipes in LA, that they're doing some analysis, and they're actually giving some low-income loans to go to those agencies to be able to go replace some of those 100-year-old pipes. And so I do know that's happening. And your second question was?
I was just curious about what kind of conversations are happening on, maybe on a statewide level as well, about the infrastructure and funding mechanisms.
Well, the state really, the only ability for the funding levels is through bonds. The water bond's going to be up. That's an opportunity for funding level. That's all I'm aware of at this point.
That's fine. Mary.
I was just wondering, when you were mentioning, it's kind of a side point, but you were mentioning schools, and we've been talking forests. What do you see as the future of the secure rural schools? Mm-hmm. And if it is not to be reauthorized, what will be the solution?
And could you also briefly describe?
I know exactly what she's talking about.
That
you want me to explain
know.
it? So I worked on it for 16 years. So Secure Rural Schools basically was a funding mechanism that was put together to backfill the funding to rural schools who had timbered counties. What they originally did was they funded the schools, because most of the land was public land, by a 25% receipt off of the timber that came off the public land went to the schools. And then when they stopped cutting timber, there was no money for the schools, so they backfilled it. The federal government backfilled it. So I don't know what Congress is going to do. That'd be a great question for your congressman. But I think what my goal was as a county supervisor, and still is that we use the resource, and that we actually, because it's burning down, we should use the resource and be able to use that tax dollars to come in. And I know that's not enough, but that's the reality of it is that we need to get back to the resource, because someday they're going to quit printing money in D.C. and we're going to actually have to pay our own way, or we're going to collapse, one of the two. So I say that we should learn ways to use our forest and get those receipts to come to the schools.
And may I
Sure.
continue with that, sir? It is a federal issue. However, as you know, as a supervisor in Northern California, it is also a rural urban issue. And LA County has a hard time accepting the fact that many of the rural counties in Northern California receive these dollars. And so, as an Assemblyman of California, what are your colleagues feeling about this, and how much support do you have on the continuation of this, or an answer to this situation?
I will support secure rural schools until we come up with another solution or they stop funding it, and I still support it. But it's not even a talk at the state capitol about secure. They won't even know what you're talking about. Look, most of these people that I work with down there, no offense to them, I love them all, but a lot of them didn't come out of county supervisors or they haven't had that experience. So you have to start the conversation at kindergarten instead of high school, because you know what I mean? I mean, they don't know the background of what you were talking about. So I have to educate them. But that's not been a topic there at all. So I'm not aware of that being an issue. But I will champion good forestry and money for our schools and county roads. It goes to 50% goes to roads.
Izzy, you're going to be next, but I just want to interject that I'll note that there's a 12-year term limit in California,
Yeah.
70 hours. So there might be a congressional seat opening in northeastern California 10 years from now. So that might, in the long run, be part of our solution. So, Izzy.
Izzy Martin with the Sierra Fund. First, I'd like to congratulate you on getting a bill passed and signed by the governor that is so applicable to your district on the biomass stuff. That was a huge victory. And I'd also like to thank you for helping get some money in the water bond for the Conservancy. I understand there was a fight about whether or not there'd be targeted money at all, and I know that you were one of the legislators that was saying, look, it's got to be in there, so I want to thank you for that. Looking at Prop 1, let's imagine it's going to pass. Positioning us to get as much as we can. I'm sorry, you know, we want it all. We were getting 0.08% or something, so we'd like to get more. Next year, are you going to be on the same committee assignments? How do you see yourself getting involved in making sure, and how can we help back you up to get that thing implemented in a way that makes sense?
Very good question. I think that my committees, just to start on the committee part of it, are only as good as whatever I am with the speaker and with the minority leader, which I have a pretty good relationship with the speaker. and I have a great relationship with Kristen too. But I think I'll be good. I think I'll be good on my committees. I think that I'll be fine, and I will do everything in my power. And that's one thing that I was very good at as a county supervisor was, if the money's going to be spent, they might as well spend it up in my district just as well as spend it somewhere else. So I try to figure out a way to help get our projects to the top of the list. And I don't know how much effect I'm going to be able to have on that, but I'm going to be on Water Parks and Wildlife. And I'm going to be on, hopefully, UNC, Utilities and Commerce, and Natural Resources, hopefully continue to be the vice chair of Natural Resources. I'm going to be getting a new chairman there, and so I don't know how my relationship, I had a very, very great relationship with the last chairman, and so hopefully that's the case. I tend to get along with people pretty well, so I think I'll be okay there. So I will work my tail off to represent not only just my district, but the things that I really care about. Our biggest challenge is to educate the people in the masses of the big cities how important we are to them. That's what I do all day long, is try to educate them. I mean, Rich Gordon totally understood it when his watershed was burning up at Hetch-Hetchy, and you know, we ran the bill, we got 76, well, there's only one no vote on our side, on the assembly side. You know, and we had the Sierra Club opposing our bill. But it was the right thing to do. And you know, it's really hard to look somebody that, whether you agree or disagree with them politically, when it's right, it's right. It's wrong that we let our forest burn down. And if you want to see somebody get passionate, I can get passionate about it, because my kids can't go out in the summer because of the damn smoke. And I'm watching I love to hunt. I'm watching the hunting grounds get burned up. I'm watching everything go up. And it's filling our reservoirs up with silt. That's wrong. Nobody can look you in the eye and tell you that's right, because it isn't. I can sell that all day long if I can just get them to the table. And that's my goal, is to get them to the table. let them understand what our issues are, and I will be effective at it if we can just get them there. The thing is getting that opportunity. I'm going to have a whole bunch of new members I don't even know, and I'm going to have to figure out where they hang out, and I'll go hang out with them.
The bar. Carrie, then Tony.
Hey, Brad. So building on this most recent conversation, in your visits, especially to the metropolitan urban areas,
Mhm.
I don't know whether to look at you in your face or up on the wall. What advice would you have to us related to what's the story? We've been talking a lot about telling the story. We haven't been telling it well. And we certainly found in the water law discussions that the story based on 60% of your water comes from the Sierra did not work. So can you give us any guidance as to what resonates, especially with the urban legislators who, at least at this moment in time, have a lot of power for the decision-making about how many hits it?
So here's how I'm doing it, and I've got 23 of them so far. Is I don't even tell them I'm going to talk to them about water and forestry and habitat and all that. I tell them, hey, let's go to Tahoe and hang out. I'll do something fun. So we take them to Siskiyou County with the help of the timbering people, and Hearst have a castle up on the McCloud River, and we go, hey, you want to go see the Hearst Castle up there? Yeah. So we go up there, and by the way, we're going to walk through the forest that's going to burn, and we start talking, and we take them to a lumber mill and show them that they're peeling logs and they're doing it sustainably, and that they're union jobs and they're great people. And when they drink out of their glass of water, it's Crystal Geyser, which is bottled right up the street. I tell them, I kid them, I go, why do you guys buy water? I don't get it. You can just drink it out of the creek. And they go, well, you're crazy. And I go, it's bottled a mile up the stream. You're paying for it. Right? So put together an opportunity for them to have a good time, sell them on that, and then learn about their family, learn what makes them tick, and talk to them about your resources. And then in my case, I have the opportunity to say, I'd love to come to your district. I'll pay my own way. Just give me a date. So that, I think the trick is for the legislators, as far as getting the masses, the only time you get the masses is when they turn that faucet on and nothing comes out. But I think I've been more successful probably than any other legislator from this area that I know of by getting people up here, and I'm gonna get them all. My goal is to get them all, every one of them. And the governor, I gave him a hard time the last time I talked to him, and I don't get to talk to him much. I mean, he calls me a Modokian, and I don't even live in Modoc. I live 6 miles from Modoc, but anyway, he at least recognizes me as a Republican. It's nice to know that the governor even recognizes me, because he doesn't need me for anything. But my goal, I told him the last time I saw him, I said, why don't you come up to the district? And before the election, I asked him, I said, buddy, I haven't done it yet, but my goal is to get them all up here and then tell them how important we are to them.
So Steve, what's our travel budget?
Yeah, I'm wondering what will really entice the Los Angeles power broker for the, maybe we could show Chinatown all over the Sierra Nevada. Tony.
Tony Lashbrook, town truckee. Brian, the premise of my question here is that the key to maintaining long-term healthy forests in the Sierra is to keep the healthy soils in place and not have them transported to the Central Valley or somewhere downstream. So I grew up in the Sierra, worked in the Sierra my entire career, went to school on the North Coast, and the kind of logging we need to do now to have healthy forests, we haven't seen in this region for 40 years. When we did it 40 years ago, I have to say, we didn't do a great job of keeping the soil in place. So my question to you, do you think both at the state level and at the federal level, we've got the right forest practice rules in place to deal with the kind of timber removal we need to do to have a healthy forest today?
I think there's a lot of opportunities to tweak some of the legislation, the rules. And I think, look, at the end of the day, anytime you can make it less expensive to file those permits, that's more they can do. And, you know, it's driven by the market. I mean, quite frankly, the market has to be there somewhat. When you have a low housing market, it's hard to get the forest taken care of. And then the public can't be even though the public's caused the problem by putting the fires out, they can't, there's never enough money to go around. You know, money fixes everything if you're a legislator. That's all we need is money, which is BS. What you need is a good plan, and you need the ability to be able to go out and sell that plan. The money will come. If you got a good plan, always. Most of the time, if you have somebody who can articulate your issue and get enough people believing in your issue, the money will come around. Or you change the regulation part of it so that private people can go do it. My goal is to not have any government money always, and any issue is not have any government money spent. Let the private people make a dime off of it, put people to work, and do good things for the environment. I can do that on my farm. I can farm sustainably and create a product that people need and want and still stay in business. I'm not getting rich, but hey, I'm living. That's all I care about. And I think there's a lot of people that are standing in, you know, getting a unemployment check that would like to just have a job. They don't need $50 an hour, but they'd sure like to have one for 18 or 20 just so they can pay their bills, who are proud people. That's what I'm after, is getting those people back to work. And then we'll talk about all that other stuff later, but for now, we need to look at some of these. We have in place some of these AB 744, and I hope people use it. That'll help prove the point. But, you know, there are some forests, particularly out there, that, you know, it's going to take some public money to fix it. And the biggest problem we have is the Forest Service is so mired down in bureaucracy that they can't, and it's not the people there, it's just the way it is.
I want to ask a follow-up question to that, actually. Recently, Sierra County passed 2 emergency ordinances.
Yes.
Talking about improving collaboration between state, federal, and local county governments around forest management and fire and fuel load reduction. And it's been somewhat controversial, but also it has been picked up by the rural county representatives of California and others as kind of a cause for the region. What's the likelihood that we could see some new era of collaboration and cooperation between local, state, and federal government on forest management policy? Could we actually achieve that if we push that, could we achieve that over a 5-year period, a 10-year period in our region?
I believe that we can. I think that you have to have the right people in the right places. I mean, you need educated legislators to be able to educate on the issues. And I have respect by the environmental community because I'm talking about things that are right. Not about because I have an R behind my name and they have a D behind it. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care what you have behind your name. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. I said that earlier. But they respect me because I tell them, I'm looking for a real enviro. Can you guys find me one? And they go, what are you talking about? I said, the forest is burning, and we're talking about the size and diameter of a tree. If it's 6 foot in diameter and it's brown, black, I don't care, it's dead. Let's fix here's how we fix the problem. And so they start then going, did you just say I wasn't an environmental? I said, yes, what I said. Because you should be helping me with this kind of legislation. And I got the one thing I'm going to frame this year out of my legislative package is not a bill. I got the NRDC to support my bill. And right? And once I got the NRDC, I got the League of Conservation Voters. The Sierra Club went neutral. That's a win. Are you kidding me? We're doing great.
That's how we count our wins at the Sierra.
I bet there's not many others that could say that have, from my side of the aisle at least, that could say, I mean, I went to meet with the director of the NRDC in California, and I said, you should support this bill. It's a great bill. And they don't even read Republican bills. I said, that's too bad, because this is a good one. And she did, and she had their scientists and whoever has to look at it, and they supported my bill. That's a win. That's starting the dialogue. That's starting the conversation that we need to have and break down this BS about what you have behind your name and what you believe in. Let's just do something for the people that's right.
I think we've got time for one or two more quick. Heidi, please.
Thank you, Heidi Colby. It sounds to me like you navigate both sides of the aisle very well.
Try to.
And as a Tule Lake farm girl,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, do you see the dialogue between the environmental community and the farm community getting more toward common ground? You know, what's your experience with that? Where is that conversation going?
It depends on which environmental community you're talking to and which farmer you're talking to. Because, look, there are some people that just like to fight. I'm convinced that they don't really, you know, and it's what we see all night when we go home and turn the TV on, it's this guy versus this guy. And I think there's people like that. So I think there are a lot of people out there that are sick and tired of that, of just that, and they're ready to move forward and do something that is good. And I think that we can see that. I think we're going to see that more. I think this is my prediction. Open primaries are awesome. Now, I'm going to tell you, now, as a Republican, they're all like, oh, listen, Republicans ought to be ecstatic about it because here's why. In a closed primary, you had to outright the right guy in a conservative district to get the nomination. Once the primary's over, it's over. In the left-leaning district, same thing. You had to out-left the left guy or girl or whatever, and same both sides, to get it. What do we have in Sacramento? Extreme right, extreme left. The people are really in here somewhere. So I think open primary, I ran against a Republican. My Democrat friends get to choose who the Republican's going to be. So I need to talk to both sides of the aisle, right?
And you got endorsed by your Democratic opponent in that primary.
Right. So likewise, I think that's going to be positive for California because you can't just be crazy. You can get taken out by your own party. I'm being serious. I think it's a positive for California. The other thing I think is great, too, is that we get 12 years and the average time frame for an assembly member was 3.6 years under the 6-year term. Look, I want my employees to stay with me till I'm gone, till I die, if they're good employees. Same thing in the legislature. If you have somebody that's good, you want them to stay around. You don't want to be looking for the next job or, you know, and I think that's going to be positive for California. So I think there are some good things coming. It's going to settle down a little bit. We got one more cycle after this because then they'll all be 12-year folks. There was one thing I will tell you that I learned about the legislator is the seniors and sophomores ahead of us, they didn't like each other. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just mean. Both sides of the aisle. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. But they really just threw rocks at each other. And, you know, if you sit down and talk to people, it's amazing. You can find something that you have in common that you like. Let's focus on that and not talk about the things we disagree on. And by golly, maybe we could actually change each other's mind if we sit and visit long enough. And that would be awesome. And I think that's going to happen. I really, really think that we have an opportunity with the open primaries. A Republican in a safe district, you know what his biggest fear is? Another Republican. You know you're going to beat a Democrat because the numbers are just there. Same thing on the other side. So you have, you know, a left-leaning district or more Democrats in that district, you have the same issue. So I think it's good.
You know, okay, Sophie?
I come from the very far south in the Sierra, and I have a little town called Springville where I'm from. And one of the cycles that I see, and I don't know how to even affect it, is the education cycle. The school's getting worse because it's not funded, and so the parents who are educated are moving out of the town. So now we have the hardware store that can't get employees, so they're closing. The restaurant can't hire any waitresses that know how to do anything, and so they're closing. We've closed, our downtown, which was so vibrant now, is empty. And it really is a cycle of, when you were saying, let's take care of the businesses that are there, it's how do you feed them if you don't have anyone there to feed them? The same thing with the lumber mills. Where we have to do something with education to keep the kids wanting to stay there so they can learn something so we can plug them in. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I do have a lot of thoughts on that. and I'm going to just philosophically talk for a second about, as an employer, I don't care what you have behind your name that somebody taught you or told you. I want somebody that'll show up with a lunchbox and a water jug that will be willing to work all day. That's what I need. That's the skill I need. First, to be the will to want to work. And I think we've lost a lot of that in society, that people don't know how to work. And they haven't been taught that. They haven't been taught that this is what you're expected to do. So I don't know whether, my wife's on the school board and we're engaged in our kids' education. And it's just in some cases, it's all the parents can do is get their kid to school so they can actually get fed and then get back home. And that's a society thing. I don't know exactly how you fix that. Other than it's the parents' issue. And a teacher who has to deal with 20 kids in a case, and you got 3 of them which you can't get out of the class or you can't move out, and you have to deal with them. You got 18 more over here that are sitting there waiting to learn who can't learn because they're dealing with these 3. And there's a lot of laws that are screwed up in that arena that we could be here all day on. But quite frankly, it's a problem for business owners. I have that problem, and that's why I'm going to hire Kim here when we get done, because I know she'll show up. But we pay. I'm going to give you an example of my own business. My wife owned a plant nursery. Thank God she sold it, but she sold it to one of her employees who has that work ethic, that knows how to work. But the thing is that when you have employees, you have to be able to. We pay $50,000 to a guy that doesn't need an education. That's a pretty decent wage for where I live, where you can rent a home for $700, a nice one. And so it's like, it isn't always the money that it's the driving factor. It's just those skills. And I don't know how you do that. I think that you have to have, part of the equation has to be family. It has to be our schools. We have to have the ability to be able to, move teachers when they're not that great. But I still say it's really mostly the parents. At the end of the day, single parenting is tough. And if you're in a single parent home, it's really difficult. And even with 2, my wife and I work hard at trying to keep our kids straightened out. And it's just a challenge. So I don't have a smoking bullet answer for that, but I will say this, that somehow when you have, people have to know that government isn't always going to bail them out. And that's what we have. We have a society where government, if you have a problem, government's going to fix it for you. And as a politician, that's what you want to hear. I told you today, I don't have an answer, because I don't have an answer. I'll tell you straight, a lot of them never want to, you can't say that, Brian. Well, I can, because I don't know. But I'm working on it. So I say that there's a lot of challenges out there. This is a great country. This is a great state. This is a great district. There are great people. You all are great people. You're here to learn and try to make a difference. And I think if you can make the difference in 2 or 3 people's lives, it's worth it. And that's all I try to do every day. And I think I really believe that we're going to see better things. I think that we're moving in a direction where we're going to see better days ahead. And I think if people lose that hope, it's just like when things get to a point like the forest is right now, you can't deny it. And it'll change.
I think that's a great note to wrap it up.